At Battery Bill, we power everything by battery. It's not if an emergency happens, but when. Are you ready? Be prepared for this hurricane season. Having backup power ready for these necessities, home, refrigerator, and phone are essential for peace of mind to have uninterrupted power during an emergency. Do you need an affordable, reliable backup power solution? We have it. Goal Zero, Jackery, and EcoFlow. Reliable, innovative, and affordable. Power when you need it. Battery Bill, Mapuna-Puna, Nimitz, and Hilo. Battery Bill.
All right, how's it going, everybody? We welcome you to episode 115 here on Hawaii Football Now. Jordan Helly, Hunter Hughes along with you here as we record this Wednesday, November 8th. It's a little after 9:30 a.m. Actually, we record this Thursday, November 9th. My days are all screwed up here, Hunter. It's been a week for those who know. So we're getting this thing up on our usual Thursday time. Everybody behind the scenes working double hard. We appreciate all you guys back there as well. Big thanks to Spectrum Mobile, Hawaii USA Federal Credit Union, and Battery Bill. Hunter, we got a pretty positive episode lined up because Hawaii picked up a road win, amazingly enough. And Hawaii will be back on the road next week. It's daylight. And my opening drive here, Hunter, is daylight savings because we get a little extra sleep on Sundays before NFL football. You get a little extra sleep before like the big noon kickoff, which is now at 7 a.m. Hawaii time instead of 6 a.m. Why are we still doing this? Why is daylight savings still a thing? This makes absolutely no sense to me anymore. And you know, it's kind of nice because the games start later in the day. You get home, you catch like an NBA game that doesn't start till like 5 o'clock, so you can watch the whole thing after your Paul Hunter or something like that. But yeah, daylight savings. What are we doing? Is this necessary?
Well, you grew up in Hawaii, Jordan.
Yeah, exactly. This is why I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, so you know this time of the year is wild, especially for northern states like in Chicago, bro. The sun's
dark all the time.
Dude, the sun sets at 3:30.
That doesn't sound fun.
It's depressing. You're like at school, and whenever you get out, it's dusk already. You're like, wow, okay, there goes our evening. So usually this time of year, I remember Pee Wee football, man, having to have your dad start the car and put the brights on just to light up the field to get the second half of football practice going. So different parts of the country, if you don't make this switch, it can really affect a lot of life. And totally different than I got a buddy who grew up in northern Alaska. I mean, this time of the year, they get 3 hours of sunlight a day. Or towards November, December.
Yeah. It's the inverse of summer.
It's a little bit different than what we're going, what we went through in Chicago, but it is comical for us over here in Hawaii. You're exactly right, because it's this makes no difference for us really than maybe 45 minutes difference when the sun goes down. So
yeah, the sun's definitely going down earlier. Why don't we just leave the clocks now as they are now? You know what I mean? So it's
instead of the rollback.
Yeah. Like pick the better of the two options and just leave it there.
That's a good call. Yeah, because
I totally understand the changing of the seasons and things getting dark. I mean, even I lived in LA for 4 years going to college. And even then, when the clocks changed, it'd be 5 o'clock out. A little not quite as drastic, but be dark. It's I don't like this. This is too early. But why don't we just leave the clocks as they are right now? So
what in the spring, in the spring when they roll it back, it's ironic because they always choose a Sunday. They always choose to do it on a Sunday.
Always Sunday. Yep.
And my dad was a preacher, and so in the springtime that Sunday, no one would come because they're still sleeping. Because they roll it back, and what normally is the time, they're an hour late getting out the door. So that one Sunday,
the least attended mass of the year,
dude, literally, it was
is when the clocks spring forward, as they say. Yeah, this is funny. I just pick one of them. Just stick with that. If you need a little extra time in the day, just pick the later one. We stick with that. I don't know. it seems unnecessary in 2023. But what do I know? I grew up near the tropics, where the years doesn't change that much over the course of the season. So just wanted to bring that up. It's always interesting for a sports fan, right? That's like the only reason I care, is because of what time games start. Other than that, I could care less what the rest of the continent and the rest of like the Western world is doing when it comes to daylight savings. I just need to know when the NFL games start. Is it at 7 or is it at 8? How early do I need to get up and make breakfast? Is really the only question here. Am I sleeping until halftime? Who knows, right? That's the only thing that really matters when it comes down to it. All right, time to get into some Hawaii football talk. I want to remind you that Hawaii Football Now is brought to you by Hawaii USA Federal Credit Union. Originally opened in 1936 as a credit union for educators, Hawaii USA has inspired a culture of giving that is rooted in education and has since become Hawaii's largest credit union and expanded to other areas of community need that impact financial health, including healthcare, housing, and hunger. To learn more, please visit hawaiiusafcu.com. All right, game time here on episode 115. Hawaii wins. Man, I said that a whole lot this season, 3 times to be exact. But this, obviously, I think the one that maybe feels the best because of what was transpiring in the month leading up to it, where Hawaii was, in the midst of a 4-game losing streak. The comeback against New Mexico State, obviously, in that second half, exhilarating, but to go on the road, to go to the place where Coach Chang and a couple other guys on the staff had spent time in Reno means a lot, I think, and quite honestly was the most complete performance for this Hawaii football program here this season. One of the best, I think, all-around comprehensive efforts from Coach Chang over the 2 years he's been in charge of the program. Hawaii now 3-7 on the year after a 27-14 victory over Nevada. Hawaii winning outright as 3.5-point underdogs. The total goes under 50.5. UH 3-6-1 against the spread this season, and the total 5-5, 5 overs, 5 under so far through their first 10 games. All of the things, maybe not all of the things, I should take that back. A lot of the discouraging trends were bucked by Hawaii in this game. They didn't score in the first quarter. That's one of those that continues to just be, kind of befuddling. But they had a halftime lead. They shut out an opponent in the first half. They ran it for 130 yards, Hunter. They won the turnover battle. The defense, 6 sacks, 10 tackles for loss. Matt Shipley hits 2 50-yard field goals. First time that's ever happened in Hawaii football history in the same game. So a lot of those things, right? Couldn't run the football. Well, they ran it for over 130. Dead last to turnover differential. Won the turnover battle. Can't get after the quarterback. Can't get in the backfield. 10 tackles for loss, 6 sacks. Like, what happened? This was a Nevada team that's not. Don't get me wrong. They're still not very good. But it was a team that looked like they had turned a little bit of a corner. Had won 2 in a row. The defense was playing pretty good. In a win against San Diego State, a 6-0 win. You just don't see those kind of scores anymore in college football. And then a pretty comprehensive handling of New Mexico, right? 2 teams that beat Hawaii. And then for the vast majority of this game, Hawaii, after taking a lead in the second quarter, was kind of in control, which we haven't seen them sort of exert their will against teams very often. So what the heck happened, Hunter?
Man, first of all, I have to say, job well done by this coaching staff. Job well done by the players. Certainly kind of hanging tight in that third quarter where there was opportunity to slip. Nevada was surging. Some personal foul penalties, which you and I will get into here in a little bit. There was opportunity for us to kind of shoot ourselves in the foot. And Timmy did not allow that to happen. And we were facing a team that, let's just call it what it is, Jordan, was not very good. We were playing a not very good Nevada team, and they showed it. And the only way that they could have found their way back into that football game was if we allowed them to. If we allowed us to stoop to their level instead of setting a bar and setting a standard. Felt eerily similar, honestly, to the San Diego State game. The one big difference here was Hawaii took care of the football. We took care of the football, did what we needed to do, and our defense played fantastic. You're gonna win a lot of football games if those three things can be accomplished by your team. Some really encouraging things that I saw. It looked like our offensive line probably had their best game all season. Kept Braden from getting hit, allowed a handful of running backs to get around the outside. I think the first play from scrimmage, Landon Sims had like a 15-yard run around the left edge. And it was like, where did that come from? Another really positive flame that showed up again was Pefele Ashlock. Looked like he kind of went into hibernation this last month, and for him to come out of the woodwork and have the strong performance that he did, 87 yards, 2 touchdowns. I wish I had started him in fantasy, Jordan, because he would have gotten me some points. And then honestly, a solid day for Shager. It wasn't exactly a banner kind of day passing wise for us. I know we left a bunch out there. We had a walk-in touchdown by Ati Malala that should have probably been grabbed, but really good. I'm not going to speak too much about that, but that actually was a new concept that they have just put into the playbook, and really encouraging to this receiver core. I've been at practice this whole week encouraging them, guys, continue to stick to your rules. This will reap its rewards if you give it the time necessary. And so, yeah, I think it's fair to say it was a solid day from the offense, but the win belongs to the defense. When you look at the team tackles, the tackles for loss, the interception, almost the pick six by Peter Monuma was fantastic. And then Isaiah Tufanga, second week in a row with a forced fumble. It looked like we had some much needed juice on that defense. And I mean, you've been around a lot of football, Jordan, both as a player, a coach, and an analyst now. It is magical what a defense can do to the heartbeat of a football team. If they are playing well, if they are causing turnovers, if they, when we were younger, right, the ooh hit, who's going to go out there and get the ooh hit to cause the crowd to yell out ooh? It is fascinating to me from an emotional standpoint how much the defensive side of the football dictates things way more than offense. To me, offense is more functional. We need you to score points, but defense controls the tone of the game, and that was certainly felt by our defensive effort on Saturday.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, right? And even a lot of those high-flying run and shoot era teams over the last quarter century, right? They got a lot of the headlines, but defense, man, right? They always had a defense that maybe gave up a lot of points, but boy, you felt them. There was a little bit of a tone-setting nature to those defenses. They could play aggressive, in part knowing that the offense was going to go put up some points as well. But it's amazing, it's like football's got so many cliches, right? It's got so many cliches. It's got so many sort of buzzwords, catchphrases, and complimentary football gets thrown around, pretty willy-nilly in a lot of ways. But a lot of them are true in its core. And it's amazing when you play complimentary football, right? The offense didn't start great. They moved the ball a little bit better in the first quarter, I thought. It was better than we've seen, but they didn't score.
No one scored in the first quarter.
Yeah, that's the point, right? It's amazing what can happen when you don't fall behind by 2 touchdowns in the blink of an eye, right? Then all of a sudden the offense can get into a rhythm. The offense, maybe not take their time, but the offense is afforded a little wider margin of error, right? It's like, okay, we can kind of trust in the game plan a little bit. We can trust in some of the schemes that we put in to eventually pay off, as opposed to being like, oh, shoot, man, we're down 17 again. Here we go. We got to start airing it out a little bit more than we wanted to. We got to abandon the run a little bit sooner than we were hoping to. It's amazing how some of those things work, right? And then all of a sudden, the special teams chips in, right? That long field goal from Matt Shipley. You got a lead in the first half, and all of a sudden you're playing with a little more pressure off of your chest. The defense can kind of get after it a little bit. And again, it was weird. I talked about it last week, but just kind of taking the game in after the fact in that San Jose State game, as demoralizing as it was, it's like you throw on that defensive tape and it's like, there were a lot of really good plays. Like, I don't know how they graded out overall. Third down, it was terrible. We understand that against San Jose State. But on first and second down, there were a lot of plays where they won. They won those plays, right? And they put them behind the chains. You were getting some great contribution. Elijah Robinson's been a little bit of a revelation. The guys like there are guys stepping up here, especially, as they get more and more playing time because of some of the injuries that have occurred on that side of the football in particular. And so you start playing. Was it perfect? No. The muff punts are concerning. The dropped touchdowns, right? That's not what you want. The personal fouls or the unsportsmanlike conducts, like, that has to stop. And so they didn't play a perfect game, but it's when every phase of the team is picking up a little bit of the load and allowing each other to sort of play through some of those mistakes. Was any third of the team perfect? No, by no stretch of the imaginations, but everybody was able to do a little bit, right? The offense was able to get going in large part because the special teams picked them up, and in huge part because the defense set the tone. It didn't allow Nevada to get anything going offensively early on, right? The offense built a little bit of a lead. And so when the defense, who was put in a bad spot because of the muff punt on special teams, Verdell Edwards, who one of the captains on this group and pretty out of character, gets the 2 unsportsmanlike conduct penalties, they were afforded a little bit of that. Like, okay, you gave up the touchdown, but we're still in the lead here. We're not going to panic because guess what? We built a little bit of a lead, and now that's not a back-breaking issue. It shouldn't happen, but again, complementary football. It's kind of amazing when each phase is able to pick each other up a little bit, and good things can happen. And it was kind of nice to see. It's like, that's how you go about winning football games. Doesn't have to be perfect, but when you get contributions all up and down the roster, you put yourself in position, and they did a nice job of building that lead. And then even when it got a little dicey there in the third quarter, they didn't panic. They were able to see this thing out.
Yeah, it's almost like I'm thinking about investment right now, where you want to hedge your investments with some other maybe conservative things, and you let your more intense, aggressive ones get after it, but those don't always pay. Where are these going to be that day in, day out, just consistency? And, if you look at our football team, I don't think you can look at either unit, offense or defense, as being a constant one. And we've needed them to be kind of an aggressive performer. And like we've said in previous weeks, it feels like we're kind of bursting at the seams, going at like 3,000 RPMs, just trying to hang on. In a matchup against, let's just call it what it is, Jordan, a subpar Nevada team, I think we see where Hawaii can match up a little bit better across the board and can handle a team in the trenches a little bit easier. Our defense, I'm looking at it right now. We had 10 tackles for loss, Jordan. We had 6 sacks. 2 forced turnovers, which all 3 of those things were next to non-existent all season. Those 3 categories right there. And you bring up a good point about complementary football. Our offense's biggest problem this year has been not I'm thinking about 2, getting off the field too early. That's the first one. And then 2, probably punching it in the red zone. Those are 2 elements that I'm sure Timmy and that offensive staff are looking at very critically right now, heading towards the end of this season. But if you can't count on that, you put so much pressure on your defense. And then if they're not also upholding their end of the bargain, like, it is next to impossible to win football games, because turn it over to the other side with any other opponent in the Mountain West. The Mountain West is a scoring conference. Teams score points in the Mountain West. And if you aren't getting there, or at least keeping them from the end zone, it's going to be tough to win.
It is. And for Hawaii to pick up just their third win all time in Reno in 12 trips, no small feat, right? They've also won 4 of the last 5 meetings overall. They won 2 of the last 3, I think it is, going up to Reno. So to end a 10-game road losing streak dating back to last season, first road win since that 38-14 victory to cap the 2021 season up in Wyoming. It had been a while. Season-long 4-game losing streak. The 10-game road losing streak was the 3rd longest in program history. First time in the last 7 games, UH did not trail after the first quarter. Did go scoreless in the opening quarter for the 5th time in the last 6 games. And won the turnover battle for the first time this season. And so I kind of curious your observations too, Hunter, in this a little bit more broad conversation. But, it seemed Coach Chang was a little more willing to play field position. They weren't quite as aggressive on 4th down. They were willing to kick field goals. Obviously, the 2 50-yarders for Matt Shipley, right? Those areas of the field inside the 40-yard line, kind of between the 40 and the 25. We've seen them go for it quite a bit this season, but trusted Matt Shipley. And altitude maybe helping influence that decision a little bit, getting a little extra boost from distance, but a little bit more, I wouldn't say conservative, but a little bit more trusting in the special teams. And part of that, I think, is the fact that they weren't chasing, right? And you're not chasing points there. And then also offensively, it wasn't just pure 4 wide. Like we've seen, they've kind of bounced back and forth in trying to figure out what they want to do, right, in terms of personnel and how they want to attack the run game as well. We saw a few more delayed handoffs, a few more draws, a little bit more spread you out go. And then also, lining up Solo Vaipulu at tight end as a blocking back in that 20 look with Landon Sims back there, who obviously had his best game. And so there seemed to be some wrinkles offensively. And you probably have a keener eye as to maybe some of those details there. And it's kind of interesting watching the television broadcast, and Kanoa and Rich Miano talking about it and talking about Timmy Chang and kind of describing the run and shoot, right, and comparing it Old Testament, New Testament, sort of this new age versus sort of your old school traditional run and shoot. And I think we've seen it evolve over time, right? And we saw Rolo and Stutzman really kind of put some RPO tweaks on it. We've seen Timmy try to figure out exactly how he wants his version of the run and shoot to look. There's a lot of collaboration between the eras, whether it's June, whether it's Rolo. I know Timmy and his guys are always picking those guys' brains. Dan Morrison, who's been in town, to help over the course of the season here and there. And so kind of curious to see or to hear what you saw out there this week, and if there were any sort of tweaks that Hawaii was able to throw out there, not giving away trade secrets or anything like that. But it seemed like they had a little bit of a different plan to go about things, especially to help the running game along with getting, some of the production that we saw in the passing game earlier in the season.
Yeah, it appeared to me like Nevada was running a cover two man at times. And if they create that space, not only are you going to get the shorter routes, which I thought Braden was much more disciplined about taking whenever it was there, but it was also number 13 was not afraid to tuck it and run it at times too.
Amazing.
For a lot of the first half, Braden was running the rock a little bit. I mean, on the box score right now, we got him at 49 yards of rushing, which I think
that includes the sack yardage.
That's right. That's a season high for him. And that was on 11 different carries. So I think that's worth mentioning, Jordan, because we haven't seen that a whole lot. That was kind of a different approach there. And that's part of playing football and taking what the defense gives you. If they drop back into a deep coverage because they're worried about you going over the top and they don't have a backer spying you and you got space, go. There's literally no one on you. Be a football player. And the big boy was moving a little bit. Love to see it. And I really like that. And you were right in saying, the play calling was strategic. I would say towards the fourth quarter, certainly in the later half of the fourth quarter, it looked like we completely shut down the engines and played for position, played for ball security. We did not want anything to get in the way of handing them back this game, because Nevada felt like they were surging, looking for something to sneak through, and we weren't about to let that happen on our watch. That was just how it felt watching that game. And yeah, I think, I've been at practice, not to gloat, but I have been at practice probably more than anybody all season. And I love that this platform is here for me to speak to so many season ticket holders and lovers of Hawaii football. I tip my cap to this coaching staff with the amount of injury that they've had to go through, transfer portal in the last couple of weeks with key guys leaving at times. They almost have to draw up a brand new offensive scheme with some of the meat and potatoes of the run and shoot, but they have to get inventive on a week in, week out basis. We started to see a little bit of RPO again, which was something that you and I have talked about at times, Jordan. It's like, man, this could be very beneficial for this group from how we're kind of watching. And without getting too much more in the weeds, it makes such a difference when you're running the ball. If you're running the ball and you can count on your O-line to go, heads up with 5 guys against their 5 guys, or certainly our 5 against their 4, and they handled their assignments, you're gonna move the ball at least 3 yards, potentially more than that. So when you look at it, averaging almost 4 yards a carry, that's going to be a good day at the office for your rushing attack.
That was the big thing, right? They were finally able to get some success on the ground, some early success on the ground. And yeah, I'm with you, right? Shager being involved in that, just helping move the chains, keep drives alive, some easy first downs. Boy, life becomes so much easier on offense, right? And I think the total numbers through the passing game kind of indicative of what you talked about, being much more disciplined and taking the shorter routes. Right, he threw it 38 times, but 203 yards through the air. And look, if Mokialati Malala catches that pass before halftime, some of that yardage is included, but they end up coming back and hitting Ashlock later for the touchdowns. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Was sacked twice. But it's just way cleaner in the pocket. I love that they were willing to go to Dalen Morris a little earlier. I think early in the season, that sort of wildcat package, if you will, with the backup quarterback, the Navy grad transfer, I thought was pretty effective. And they kind of went away from it a little bit. And now I think in part because of the injuries to almost everybody else, getting him involved a little bit more in the run game. I like that. Brings a little dynamic element to it. And so it was much different for this group. Again, it took them a little while to get going, but then you saw some things starting to click. Just some of those numbers: Shager 21 of 38 with the 2 touchdowns, 203 yards. Landon Sims 11 carries, 65 yards.
Solo laid a beautiful block on that touchdown from Morris. I mean, he blew that guy up in the hole. It was gorgeous.
Untouched. Morris basically untouched into the end zone on that one. I think Vaipulu's kind of settled into that role quite a bit, and the way they're using him in some of those blocking schemes. Then he had the 3 carries for 9 yards. Najee Bryant Lele 5 carries, 14 yards. The other interesting thing, only 9 lost yards on running plays, and 6 of those from Shager, right? So on the sacks basically. So not a lot of negative plays for this team. on Saturday. Feli Ashlock, 9 catches, 87 yards. He had the 2 touchdowns. Stephen McBride, 4 for 52. Nick Senecal, 4 for 37. Carson Puno, 1 grab for 11 yards. Kwali Nishigaya had the 1 early grab for 9 yards. Alex Perry, 1 for 8. And then Chucky Hines, 1 for -1 in the ball game. And so, yeah, it was an offense that, I think showed some ideas, some good ideas and how they want to go about things. Defensively, some of the stats looking at it, Jalen Smith had 7 total tackles, had a tackle for loss and the sack there. I think he just keeps continuing to play better. Elijah Palmer, good to see him healthy. That dude's just all over the place, man. 6 total tackles. Andrew Troy had 6 with 1.5 tackles for loss. Peter Monuma had the interception, 5 tackles. Nalo Emerson in there. Elijah Robinson had 2 sacks in the ball game. A ton of different guys getting involved in the backfield defensively for this group. And, kind of like we saw with Logan Taylor last year. It's like you give these guys a chance and maybe they didn't jump out right away, but man, a lot of these guys are getting opportunities and playing much better with extended run. Nalo Emerson had 5 tackles, Mekhi Pay with 4, Isaiah Tufangi, you mentioned, forced a fumble. He had half a sack in this ball game as well. I thought the secondary played pretty decently well in this ball game. And so for a Hawaii team to win basically all of the categories you want them to, right? Turnover differential, they won that. Turnover battle, they win that. They run for more yards than Nevada. They throw for more yards than Nevada. More first downs than the Wolfpack in this ball game. Time of possession advantage to Hawaii in this ball game as well. Hawaii holds Nevada 3 of 14 on third down, which is obviously a much better improvement over what San Jose State did against that defense. UH 5 of 16 on third down, not necessarily lighting it on fire, but they were able to sustain a few more drives than we've seen from this group. And so for a Hawaii team that shut out an opponent in the first half for the first time since the New Mexico Bowl in 2020 against Houston, first time since then, it's the first team's largest halftime lead since the 2021 season finale at Wyoming, and first time that they have taken a halftime lead this season. So pretty good stuff. And Matt Shipley, by the way, recently making the semifinal list for the Lou Groza Award for the best place kicker in college football. 2 50-yarders, that'll help you do that. No doubt about it. So kudos to those guys there. Any final thoughts on the Nevada win here, Hunter, before we turn the page and take a look at Air Force, who admittedly a little different caliber than Nevada?
Just because it was such a hot topic, both on the fans' voice and around Hawaii football fandom, the call or cry, if you will, to suspend Verdell Edwards. I wanted to kind of speak on that just for a second.
Yeah, please.
Verdell is not only one of the captains of our team, but since the injury to Cam Stone and Logan Taylor, one of the leaders of our team. And he, stood up and acknowledged the whole team on Tuesday and apologized and asked for forgiveness and said that won't ever happen again. And the team embraced him and in a sense forgave him. And I've gotten a chance to know this guy throughout the season. He's a phenomenal dude and completely out of character. That's not something that he normally does or something that they're worried about him continuing to do. When you're on a struggling football team and you're one of the guys that week in, week out is the standard bearer, is the bar setter, and either guys aren't going there with you or your effort isn't being matched, and on top of that you're losing, it is hard. I'm speaking from literal direct experience as one of those guys who's tried to help a bad team continue to move forward. It gets tiring, Jordan. And there's a great line from that movie Shawshank Redemption: every man has its breaking point. And I think about that line watching that interaction with Verdell Edwards, where he he had a moment, and we all have moments. I think it's helpful to remember that these are kids, these are college athletes, and each player on a college football team is treated differently, and deservedly so. You can't cut that kid off for the rest of the season when he's a lifeblood to your team. And track record speaks for that as well. You know, if he's never done anything like that, you got to show some grace, and you got to show some flexibility from the staff towards one of your leaders. And I hope that people have that kind of level of grace for me whenever I lose it, because I'm prone to losing it from time to time. And just kind of wanted to speak to that a little bit, Jordan, because it's kind of a bigger issue than just one play, and the team has addressed it, and for all intents and purposes, looks like it's been handled.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, right? It can't happen. Like that's something that needs to be addressed. It's something we haven't seen from Verdell really at any point in his time at the University of Hawaii. He's a captain, as you point out, and obviously even captains, right? You can be held to a little bit of a higher standard, a little bit higher expectation. And if that's been handled in-house, then I think that's satisfactory for the group. I will say, right, and on the breaking point, and I don't know, those two, it was obviously, it started with him and the receiver, John, a little bit back and forth. And you want to be smart. You want your guys to play with a little bit of an edge. I don't know exactly what drew the first unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. The problem that I had with it, and I'm not making an excuse for Verdell, like he I think will probably divulge that too if you got a chance to talk. Like, he's got to be better. He can't get kicked out of the game. Like that just cannot happen. But the official was jawing back a little bit there.
That's exactly right. He was doing it to him.
Which so I'm like, okay, that also seemed a little bit suspect to me. And again, I don't care if it's the official talking to you or whatever. Like, if you're a player, you just gotta go back to the bench, right? Again, it's a great learning moment. But the bigger problem, the even bigger problem that I had with it, and I've officiated a little bit at the high school basketball level, the guy who threw the second flag was not the official that Verdell was engaged with. The official that Verdell was speaking with, that Edwards was kind of had, there was a little something there. It was another official who threw the flag on the second unsportsmanlike conduct, and I hate that. Like, if an official is engaged with a player or a coach or something, and there's an argument going on, and clearly it was not one-sided, then let that official handle it. A secondary official came in and threw that second unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, and I didn't like that. And if that official who was having that conversation with Edwards is the one who ends up throwing it, it's like, okay, well, right? If you're getting an argument with an umpire, you don't want the first base umpire to come sprinting down the line and then all of a sudden kick you out for whatever you're saying with the home plate umpire. Like, that's, hey man, this isn't your conversation, is basically my point. And so,
or home plate umpire calling a guy out at first.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's like,
He's
hey man,
close.
like, I don't know what was said. It may have been warranted at the end of the day. Maybe it should have been 2 flags and him being disqualified for the rest of the game. But I did have quite a problem with another official kind of coming into the A and B conversation, if you will. And again, none of this is to excuse what happened. Like, it cannot happen again. I don't care if he was at fault, if he was partially at fault or not at fault at all. Like, it cannot happen. They need him out there. And they can't be gifting away yardage. They can't be gifted away touchdowns because of that. But yeah, I don't think it was necessarily handled great by the officials maybe there. And we weren't on the ground. It was on the road. We didn't get quite the up close and personal view of it. But yeah, I did have some issues with how it was mechanically operated by the officials in that sense. But again, bottom line, final word, you got to be better. Like,
absolutely.
Just head back to the bench.
Another thing that has been a topic of conversation around Hawaii fandom for weeks now has been the overall topic of discipline. And I can tell you firsthand that practice the last 2.5 weeks, since before the San Jose game to now, is totally different. I mean, they have quarterbacks pushing sleds. They have they open practice with team-wide conditioning and not just jogging. I'm talking like full sprints with coaches yelling, blowing whistles in their butts from the time they start practice. And they're saying things like, this may not be for everyone. This is the new standard. It's about the little things, gentlemen. Honestly, it felt kind of, those periods reminded me, Jordan, of the Chow era. Chow era felt just like that. And the shift in intensity is what was so great that even bystanders like myself am checking to see if I'm going to get yelled at. If maybe this isn't for everyone, and I'm thinking about myself, like, okay, I need to go get on that sled real quick. I'm bringing that up because it's slowly starting to change. The mood, the accountability, the standard across the board is shifting. And this road victory, I think, is a huge testament to what this staff has shifted in practice. So I kind of wanted to end Nevada with that.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. They've cut down on the penalties overall over the last 4 weeks or so, which is a good sign. The big remaining, I think, issue, and you've seen it at practice, is just the 15-yarders. Like if they can rein that in a little bit, and they just have come at poor times, right? Whether it was Smith a couple of weeks ago against San Jose State after the stop on third down, whether it was the issue with Verdell Edwards this week, like it's been, they've addressed it. They've tried to, and I think it's gotten better. And now it's just cleaning up the last bit of it. But I mean, you just look at the box scores from early in the season, double-digit penalties and 100 yards of penalty yardage. Like it's not that anymore. It's just the untimely 15-yarder, man. They just got to cut that out, and I think that will, kind of go a long way for this group when it comes down to it. So it's a group that will turn the page and has a sliver of hope to try and get to 6-7. They got to run the table the rest of the way, and that's going to start with Air Force on Saturday. So we'll take a quick break and we'll come back second half time on episode 115. The Kuter Trophy on the line.
This is Hawaii Football Now from ESPN Honolulu.
All right, second half time here on episode 115. Hawaii Football Now, Jordan Hunter back with you. The General Kuter Trophy is on the line as first place Air Force rolls into town. Air Force 18.5-point favorites. The total is right about 48.5. I think that may have climbed just a little bit here as we look at it. Air Force leading the all-time series, taking 14 of the first 22 meetings, 14 wins, 7 for Hawaii, and 1 tie in the series history leading up to this weekend's matchup. Air Force still the lone unbeaten in conference play. They suffered their first loss of the season this past weekend in Denver, a little neutral site game, as they welcomed in Army and got kind of handled by the Black Knights in that ballgame, losing 23-3. And so Air Force dropping out of the national rankings, including the college football playoff rankings. And now the Mountain West kind of behind the 8 ball when it comes to trying to get in to the New Year's 6 bowl games in the college football playoff rankings. They're going to need some help, that's for sure. Fresno and UNLV both 4-1. Wyoming 3-2, Boise 3-2. San Jose State after a slow start, they're 3-2 as well, kind of the top half of the Mountain West Conference standings. Big one this weekend, UNLV taking on Wyoming tomorrow night, Friday night, that is. Falcons come in at 8-1 overall, as we mentioned, 6-1 and 6-0 in the Mountain West Conference. Troy Calhoun, the veteran, he's been there 17 years now in Colorado Springs. Did not go well last week in Denver, lost 23-3, probably cost them the command, or possibly cost them the Commander-in-Chief's trophy as well. That'll come down to the Army-Navy game later on this season. Dropped out of the college football playoff rankings, still receiving votes in both the AP and the coaches poll. Hawaii football fans will remember the last meeting in Hawaii or not. They may have blocked this out of their memory. That was the 56-26 Air Force win. And in fact, the last 2 Air Force trips to Hawaii haven't gone well. There's that infamous 58-7 game. That was the last game coached by Norm Chow, in charge of the program. Last Hawaii win 2016 at Air Force, 34-27 overtime victory that year. This is a Air Force program that has been just the example of consistency over the last number of years. 10-3 last season, won the Armed Forces Bowl 30-15 over Baylor. The last 4 seasons, including this year, or the last 4 seasons and this year included, so the last almost 5 seasons now, they're 42-12. Any Group of 5 program would love that, and for them to do it with the restrictions that the service academies have to abide by. They went 10-3 in 2021, beat another Power 5 opponent in a bowl game in Louisville, went 3-3 in the COVID short 2020 season. And then in 2019, they went 11-2 and beat Washington State. So they got 3 bowl wins in the last 4 seasons against Power 5 opponents. They're 42-12. That includes, up to date this season. It's not Nevada. This can be a tougher test coming this week. They obviously bring the unique element of the triple option. They are leading the nation, I think, still, leading the nation in rushing at over 284 yards per game. They only give up 82 yards on the ground. They score over 30 points per game. They give up 14.4 points per game. That's the 5th fewest in the nation. So they got the 5th best scoring defense in the nation. They've held 16 straight opponents to 30 points or less, which is the longest streak in the nation. A lot of it has to do with the fact that you don't get the football when you play them because they just eat yardage. They only throw it for 84 yards a game. They don't need to, and give up 157.4 pass yards per game. That's the 4th best in the nation. Again, number 5 scoring defense in the nation, and number 3 defense in the nation in terms of total yardage, giving up just 239.6 yards per game. And offensively, they average just over 358 yards per game. So with all that being said, Hunter, how does Hawaii pull the upset here?
Before going to Hawaii, Jordan, I just, as a lover of college football, and in all of the progression that the game has seen, the move forward with different positions and play calling, it's still cool when a team like Air Force can have this level of production with something as old as the triple option. Like, just to me, I look at their success this year, and they're literally leading the nation in rushing off of the triple. It just, that there's something, even though we're playing them this week and I want to kick their butt, that is, it's just cool. It's just cool to me where you can get a group of special individuals together that are bought in singularly on one mission. I'd say that tongue in cheek because they're literally soldiers. And then go out there and accomplish at the level that they are. I need to say that. And every time we play Air Force, every time, I remember that game, Chow's last game. I remember it like it was yesterday. If you don't go out there and punch them in the mouth, they will run you. They will run you. They will run you. They will run you. All this week, Timmy has been shouting at the guys to get them off the field. And then offense, keep them off the field. Keep them off the field. I look at, their record this year, and there have been a couple times, Jordan, mainly the Sam Houston game earlier in the season, and then the Navy game, and then obviously this Army game too is kind of an anomaly, but there have been occasions where their offense might have had an off day, or they just ran into a decently good defense where, from a offensive production standpoint, they didn't score all that many points. And for Hawaii to be successful, we're going to have to outscore them. We're going to need to have one of our banner offensive days to hang with these guys, because you mentioned it, when they get the ball, they don't give it back. And coming off of an Army 23-3 loss with 6 turnovers, I guarantee you they aren't throwing the ball very much. They are keeping it on the ground. Hawaii is susceptible to letting up a lot of rushing yards. That's how we are scouted. They're going to run it up our throat. And to combat that, it's all on our offense. Again, if we can have a production level day similar to the Vanderbilt game, the second half of New Mexico State, and then the San Diego State game without the turnovers, we might have a shot. We really might have a shot. I believe that 100% in my heart that we have what it takes offensively to put up some numbers. We're still waiting to see if that will happen this season. We're going to need all of that and then maybe a little bit of help from them for us to make it a ball game this Saturday.
Yeah, it's you got they make you play more perfect than you want to, right? Because of the limited number of possessions, because of the lengthy drives, the time of possession. But it's an interesting matchup for Hawaii because they have seemed to play the run a little bit better last week. Obviously, it's a much different look. It's hard to prepare for the triple option. And they kind of wear you down. The key is, right, if you can come up with some stops early on and make them play from behind, it becomes a much different calculus for a triple option team. And so can Hawaii do that? They haven't been able to really do that. Even against Nevada last week, they weren't able to score early. Their defense was able to obviously shut out Nevada in the first half. And so it's an Air Force team that obviously there's a whole lot of meaning that comes to this, right? The Air Force coming in on Veterans Day weekend, playing for the trophy that these two teams play for. There's a little added meaning to a lot of this. But it's an Air Force team that coming off of that loss to Army is going to be, they're going to be smarting a little bit and ready to go. But it is kind of interesting because of their ranking and whatnot and not having dived into Air Force until this week, and getting into it. They haven't really played the toughest of schedules, like their non-conference opponents so far. Robert Morris, FCS, Sam Houston, who's transitioning up to FCS, who Hawaii's got on the schedule here in a bit. Sammy's not good. I think they may have just won their first game, or they might still be winless. Beat Sam Houston 13-3 in this one. And then outside of those games, they had Navy and Army. Both teams aren't having great years, and Army was kind of in a similar slide that Hawaii was into before this latest victory over. And you throw out the records when you get the three service academies together, we get that. But even in conference, right, San Diego State's down this year. They got San Jose State early before the Spartans are kind of on this run here. Played Utah State at home, beat Colorado State at Colorado State. And then Wyoming's kind of the most impressive victory on that. But they haven't necessarily beaten the upper half of the conference outside of Wyoming and San Jose State, if you want to throw them in there, right? They haven't played UNLV. They haven't played Boise. They haven't played Fresno.
They will.
They will. Yeah, they've got UNLV and Fresno to close out, right? That's going to be a big, and probably will decide whether they're in the conference championship game or not as one of the top two teams. And so they got a tough stretch here. And obviously with the travel, right, coming to Hawaii and then going back next week, taking on UNLV. And so I guess just looking at it, right, they haven't knocked off Murderer's Row. I don't say that to diminish what they've accomplished, because I do think it's a darn good football team. Zach Larrier is one heck of an option quarterback and can throw it pretty decently too. But some teams have found some success in slowing things down just a little bit against Air Force. You talk about Sam Houston, you talk about Navy and Army, but other than that, right, they've scored, even if it wasn't Murderer's Row in the Mountain West, like they put up 39, 45, 49, 34, 30 in conference in 2 years, which I think speaks very much to your point, Hunter. Always got to score. Like they got to put up some numbers here. And even if it was their best performance of the season against Nevada, still 27 points, right? You're going to want to get to probably that 30-point mark, which has sort of been the threshold that you bring up quite often. So yeah, that's I think similar story here this week. Get off the field and score some points, which is obviously easier said than done.
I don't think it's that much of an exaggeration, Jordan, to say that if we win this Saturday, it will be the crowning achievement of Timmy Chang's coaching career.
Yeah, this is a big. I mean, I just checked it again. They're actually 19.5-point underdogs now, so they're 3 touchdown underdogs. when it comes down to it. They'll be up against it here, no doubt about it. Zach Larrier's their leader at quarterback. He's only thrown it 62 times this year, but he averages 20 yards per completion, 6 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He's also ran it for 578 yards and 5 touchdowns. Emmanuel Michel is their kind of that B-back in the option, 733 yards and 9 touchdowns. They've got 4 different guys who run it for over 345 yards, and 6 different guys who have at least 2 touchdowns rushing this season. Jared Rosnos, leading receiver with 11 grabs for 332 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's 30.2 yards per catch, by the way. And they got a couple of dudes who can get after it. Bo Richter and PJ Ramsey, both with over 6 sacks, as kind of those edge guys on that Air Force defense. So something to keep an eye out for, as we know Hawaii likes to throw the football. So that'll be a undersized as usual, but pretty athletic Air Force defense. So Hawaii's got their hands full a little bit there. All right, any final thoughts, Hunter, on Air Force before we get to the wrap-up portion here?
Yeah, I think we're also needing to acknowledge that Air Force lost this last week in a borderline humiliating fashion. They're going to be angry. They're not happy that Army, another armed forces school that is not very good this season, spoiled potentially their chances at a New Year's 6 bowl game. And the smudge on their otherwise perfect season has been stamped by another armed forces school. I promise you, if we don't match their energy, like that to me is the scariest part of this Air Force team coming in here. They know that we're not very good, and they want to put a hurting on us in retaliation to what happened last week. So I know football players, they are really looking forward to getting back what they lost last week.
Yeah, it was quite the wake-up call, right? Quite the reminder that they got to get back to it. So yeah, it's gonna be a good one. We'll see you guys down there at Ching on Saturday. Should be a lot of fun. I apologize, we're kind of running up against the hour, so can't quite get to the comments, but shout out to everybody from Al to John, Justin, our guy Pastrami Lover also dropping us a line again, and sharing the sentiments about pastrami. So that's always good there. But yeah, final comments on the 2-minute drill. Anything you'd like to discuss here, Hunter, before we wrap this thing up?
As much as it's grasping at straws or shooting for something that's way up in the sky, if we win out, there is still an off chance right now, as we record this today. There's an off chance that we might still find ourselves backdoor barreling, just like at Pipeline, backdoor barreling our way into the Hawaii Bowl. And I like to throw that out there just as kind of a little note of positivity and hope before anything else happens this season.
You never know. You never know. Crazier things have happened. That is for sure. All right. That'll do it for us as we wrap things up. Hopefully another Hawaii win this week. We shall see. Big thanks to Spectrum Mobile, Hawaii USA Federal Credit Union, and Battery Bill as well. Big shout out to all of you for tuning in, and all the guys dropping us a comment as well. For Hunter, I'm Jordan. We will see you next week, right back here on Hawaii Football Now.
You've been listening to Hawaii Football Now with Jordan Helly and Hunter Hughes, all from ESPN Honolulu.